Absolutely. And here's why it is so relevant, because she's saying that Epstein did not act alone. We need to ask her, who were the other men that she believes may have been involved in or abusing these young girls? What did she know?
Just because Melania Trump is willing to throw her husband under the bus doesn't mean she is any less complicit in the Epstein Files cover-up. When Melania held her press conference last month and said, "I do not know Jeffrey Epstein. It was all my husband's thing," she wasn't saying that because she knows Donald Trump is a criminal who should be held accountable. It's because she's trying to shift the blame. And Thomas Massie just shifted it back on her. And I am so glad he did. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now Melania Trump is not happy about that, which is why she is manically posting, which she never does, by the way. She has been a lot quieter in this second term than she was in the first. It's likely because her marriage is collapsing. But I want to get into what Thomas Massie had to say and what Melania is posting about the Epstein files, because it reveals a lot about the 3 million files that are still out there. But it all begins with what Thomas Massie had to say about the First Lady and the Epstein files.
Congressman, we're almost out of time. Couple more here. I want to ask about the Epstein files. As you've noted, the speech and debate clause actually protects you from being prosecuted for whatever you say on the floor of the House. You have named names in the Epstein files in the past. Can we expect you to name more names in the coming weeks and months?
Yes. Todd Blanch is violating the law. There's still millions of files they haven't released. We know from talking to the victims' lawyers that their own 302 forms haven't been released. We know that files have been over-redacted. I have released at least 3 names of billionaires who are implicated in this. I don't think it's possible to get to convictions with Todd Blanch at the top and with the FBI director, Kash Patel, at the top, because they've effectively both perjured themselves by saying that there's nobody else in the files. Even Melania doesn't believe that. The First Lady knows that Jeffrey Epstein didn't act alone. And here's the great thing, Kristen. Whether I'm in Congress or not, the Epstein Files Transparency Act is a law, and it goes on for years. So if we can't get this Attorney General and this FBI Director to do the right thing, the next ones who take those seats are obligated by law to release the files that these individuals are not releasing now.
Melania knows what's in the Epstein files because Melania is a part of those Epstein files. I don't care how many times she says, "I do not know Ghislaine. I don't know, what are you talking about?" And now I sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger. My Melania is not as good as my Trump. Quite frankly, it's not as strong. But Melania, we know that you were at those parties. You sent those emails, those photos, those videos. You are aware of the crimes that took place. So Melania coming out and saying, well, we need more testimony. We need to release the rest of the files. That does not make her a hero. Now, I don't believe you think it does. I just have to state emphatically that we cannot allow these people to co-opt the real need for accountability and justice for these survivors as a way to defend themselves. Because Melania, you are just as culpable as your husband. Which is why Ro Khanna was so correct to say this. Something that certainly has Melania scared as she's panic posting about the Epstein files, which we're going to get into after this clip.
Absolutely. And here's why it is so relevant. Because she's saying that Epstein did not act alone. We need to ask her, who were the other men that she believes may have been involved or abusing these young girls? What did she know? Did she know about any young girls being abused? Did she know of other men talking about the rape and abuse of these young girls? She has relevant information. If she didn't have relevant information, how could she say that Epstein was not acting alone? So it is relevant to the investigation. Hillary Clinton was a total witch hunt, in my view. I mean, I thought President Clinton should have been asked questions, but Hillary Clinton had nothing to do with it. But Melania Trump actually does, and she should come and testify in front of our committee.
Melania knew, and Melania knows, so Melania should speak out. Of course, Melania should speak out, but that would also make her complicit. And I think we know there's something a little deeper under the surface. And honestly, it might get me sued to say this, because it got Michael Wolff sued to say it, and it has Melania threatening journalists all across the country for saying it. But she seems to have had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein before she met Donald Trump, and who knows what that relationship looked like. Paolo Zampoli, the man who says he introduced Trump and Melania, who was just on the China trip with Trump that Melania wasn't on because he's in the government, says he introduced Melania and Trump. But he also worked with Epstein to find his models, to find his girls. They bought modeling agencies together. So maybe Melania was a part of that. There are a lot of questions to be answered, but Melania won't. She won't testify, she won't speak out, and she will silence anyone who calls her out. Which is why, in the wake of all this, she is making posts like this. Melania Trump wrote on Twitter after a judge tossed out Michael Wolff's lawsuit against Melania Trump and called it contorted and not how courts work. Of course, this was the countersuing lawsuit from Michael Wolff after Melania threatened to sue him for $1 billion if he continued to talk about herself and Epstein. But Melania, given this news, wrote, "So, this is a statement written from her lawyers. First Lady Melania Trump is proud to continue standing up to and fighting against those who spread malicious and defamatory falsehoods as they desperately try to get undeserved attention and money from their unlawful conduct. Undeserved money and attention. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. That sounds like the standing army Donald Trump is trying to build by giving money to January 6th insurrectionists via his slush fund. But I digress. Melania is tweeting, 'Look at me. I won my lawsuit. I'm untouchable.' And by the way, it was a Trump judge who threw out Michael Wolff's lawsuit. And again, this was a lawsuit, we reported on this a few days ago, a countersuit against Melania Trump for threatening him, for going after him. This is a lawsuit that says you cannot just try to shut me down with fear of retaliatory legal tactics to get my silence. And Melania is really just touting that in public is what she's doing. And she's saying I am untouchable because it was a Trump judge, notably, who threw it out. What a surprise. A Trump-appointed judge coming to the defense of Melania, of Trump, and the Epstein class, keeping Epstein's secrets under wraps. Does that surprise anyone? No. Why would it? This is what we expect. This is what we know will happen. So who would be surprised? Nobody. Nobody would be surprised by any of this. But this is what Melania is trying to do. She is trying to flaunt the fact that much like her husband and much like the Epstein class which she occupies, which she is a part of, let's be clear. That's just a fact. Melania is the Epstein class just as much as any of the other sick and disgusting billionaires who hung out with him and committed crimes alongside him are. Melania is the Epstein class. And what she's saying in that post, as Thomas Massie says, Melania knows more, as Ro Khanna calls for her to testify, is not only will she not be doing those things, but anyone who asks her to, who demands her to, or who calls her out will face some sort of retaliation from the administration, or from her very well-paid lawyers. Her lawyers wrote that statement. That is not a statement she wrote, and that is sending as much of a message as anything, that she is boarding herself up and she will not speak to Congress. She will not speak to reporters. She will hold her press conference, then walk away from it and claim, I knew nothing, it was all my husband's thing. And she does that because, of course, she's happy to throw Donald Trump under the bus because they don't really have a relationship. Maybe at this point they have a contract, but certainly nothing more than that. That is what Melania is doing. But she should testify. She's not going to. She won't want to, certainly. We know that to be the case, but she needs to be made to testify. She does. I think we should run on that. I think we should drive her and Trump crazy with that. I think we should. I think Melania being confronted with news cycle after news cycle after news cycle saying she should testify. And we're going to ask some really tough questions about your past and try to embarrass you and try to air it out. Because Melania is certainly a person who cares about her image, cares about her public perception. Why else, of course, besides the grift would she do the big stupid movie, write the big stupid book? She's grifting. She's making money. They have lots of money that they've stolen in other less publicly humiliating ways, right? Donald Trump can insider trade his way to the $40 million check that Melania got cut for her fake documentary without the embarrassment of the fake documentary that gets a 0 or 1 on Rotten Tomatoes and nobody goes to see, right? So Melania is going to be humiliated. And I think we should say that if that means we can get her to testify, because she should have to testify. Hillary Clinton did. Hillary Clinton had no connection to Epstein like Melania does. So why on earth would she not be coming before the House Oversight Committee except for the fact that Congress will always stand in the way? And currently Donald Trump has shut down essentially the Oversight Committee. So testimony cannot be given because they know that this is an Epstein-occupied administration. Donald Trump's new Fed chair, don't even get me started. This clip from Elizabeth Warren, where we're going to close, says it all.
So let me ask, do the Juggernaut Fund or the THSDFS LLC invest in any companies affiliated with President Trump or his family? Companies that have facilitated money laundering, Chinese-controlled companies, or financing vehicles established by Jeffrey Epstein?
Senator Warren, thank you. So let me first share a point of agreement with you. The Fed has two tools. One is its monetary policy, and the second is its credibility. And the scandals that you talked about, the ethics problems you talked about, went to the core of the credibility that has hurt the Fed.
Could you answer my question, please? I asked. You have $100 million in undisclosed assets. And what I'm asking is, are any of those with this outfit that invests in companies affiliated with President Trump or his family, companies that have facilitated money laundering, Chinese-controlled companies, or financing vehicles set up by Jeffrey Epstein? It's a yes or no question.
Senator, I've worked tirelessly with the ethics officials at the Office of Government
Yes,
Ethics.
and you have not
come to an
revealed
ethics agreement
$100
with
million
them
in
and have
assets.
agreed, Senator, to sell all of
That's
my
not
financial
my
assets,
question. Mr.
including
Walsh, are
the
you
Duquesne
refusing
assets.
to tell us if you have investments, for example, in vehicles set up to advance Jeffrey Epstein? Is that what you're telling us? You just won't tell us?
Senator, what I'm telling you is that those assets that you represent at Juggernaut will be sold if I'm
All right,
confirmed
let me
before I take
follow up.
office and sign the oath of office.
Let me follow up on that. Will you at least disclose how you plan to disclose and divest these secret assets? I'm sure you understand that the public might question your motives if, for example, billionaire Stanley Druckenmiller, who you honored in your opening statement, and who makes a living guessing what the Fed will do next, cuts you a massive check for $100 million as you take the oath of office to become the new Federal Reserve Chair.
Senator, as you know, it sounds like your fight might not be with me, but the Office of Government Ethics. I have come to full agreement with them and have agreed to divest all of those assets,
I'm asking you
especially
a very
those that you
straightforward
referenced
question,
before I
Mr.
take the oath
Warsh,
of office.
and that is,
It is an Epstein-occupied administration, and Melania is just as much a part of that as anyone else is. And that is why Thomas Massie should call her out. It's why Ro Khanna should call her out. That's why we are going to call her out on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you.